Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Let's Talk About Health. I'm Dr. Madeline Mant, and today I have the immense privilege of speaking with Cat Criger, who is UTM's Indigenous Advisor. So welcome, Cat, and thank you for coming on Let's Talk About Health.
Thank you very much, and I'll just introduce myself in a traditional way. When was your tant say go makwagish gaden dish college can do them kuga German English and Dao. So in a quick translation, I introduce myself traditionally with my spirit name, which is Sun Bear, and that I am, my DNA is Cayugan from the Haudenosaunee people of the Six Nations Confederacy on my dad's side. And on my mom's side, I'm also German English. So there's that walking diversity of DNA within myself that I like to honor at the beginning of a talk.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I want to just dive right in and ask you, what does it mean to be UTM's Indigenous Advisor? What is your role?
First, it's kind of a privilege to have a position like that, given my diverse background. My role as Indigenous Advisor is much like it sounds like. I'm advising from an Indigenous point of view, philosophy, pedagogy, way of walking. The role mostly is to support and enhance the well-being of students, staff, faculty, to be a resource access as an Indigenous person, speaking with Indigenous voice. And that's everything from, supporting students, assisting in syllabus development, class lectures. I'm also actually a sessional instructor, which is kind of neat. That was granted to me by the university based on my experience, as opposed to diploma-based foundation for that. So the idea, I think, is to have a place within the university, within the UTM setting, which is my office, which is the Indigenous Center at this point, where students, staff, faculty can come, ask questions, be supported, request assistance. Quite often I'm working with students who are doing courses that have Indigenous content, sometimes clarifying things or helping with assignments, or as I said, the guest lecture series that I do. The Indigenous Center also provides ongoing webinars, lunch and learn sessions, teaching circles. So it's a resource, and a support resource combination.
Yeah, and so I hear words like well-being and support in there. Can you talk a little bit about how you have engaged with health as your role as the Indigenous Advisor?
So a lot of my work as engaging the health concept of students is there's a kind of a foundational philosophical concept that I like to live by, and that's that as long as we're strong in mind, body, and spirit, that we're doing quite well. And I guess supporting those things, mind talks about our accumulation of knowledge, of course, which is hopefully why we're at the academic institution. Keeping ourselves physically happy, as well as keeping ourselves, and here's an English word, spiritually happy. That word has all the things attached to it. So it's not really, or not just the idea of a belief system, but how we are in that emotional, spiritual sense connection. So for instance, within the university setting, quite often I'll be doing work with the Health and Wellness Department, with Ravi and Veronica there, which are two wonderful people, and offering an alternative mindset to looking at health as an inclusive, that English word holistic comes up.
Yeah.
But I like to use the phrase braiding together these three things, mind, body, and spirit, so we have a strong individual, and supporting on that triangle, that support tripod of what it is to walk through life in the university setting. So it can be focused on any one of those three things. And again, the idea of being speaking from the first person as an Indigenous person, brought up and trained in traditional concepts and philosophies. So that's the word alternative comes to mind, but I don't think of it as alternative.
Right.
I think of it as part of a cultural state of well-being. So that health intersection, we're not healthy if one of those things isn't well. We tend to, our tripod tends to tilt one way if one of those three legs of mind, body, and spirit is a little bit weak. So that in itself involves, I guess, a lot of philosophy, and a lot of self-reflection. So these things are inspired in the webinars, for instance, that I do, since we're virtual now. And before it was the teaching circles, as they're called traditionally. A lot of that would be addressed within the teaching circles, within the webinars. So there's a strengthening of a mindset of why we're here, the gift of receiving knowledge, the ones who transfer that knowledge, and the respect due to the ones who are carrying that knowledge and are basically have devoted their life to being in a situation like yourself where you want to share your knowledge. And that's kind of a wonderful thing. So there's almost looking to the knowledge carriers. I like that. It almost means doctor or professor or et cetera as we go down.
Yeah, no, thank you for that really, really generous delving into your role at the university. I was hoping we could also speak a little bit about your role or your interactions with health outside of your university career.
So outside the university, if I go back to the way I was taught and trained was I apprenticed to an elder, a traditional elder, and I was selected for that role. It wasn't like I, did a written application or something. And I apprenticed as a one-to-one student, so there was only myself. Apprentice is an English word again, but helper is the traditional word that's translated, or skibewash, which means helper. And that was a 24/7, 365, probably almost 20 years of working with a traditional elder to learn about working with people, learn about philosophies, learn about counseling, learn about what are called traditional plant medicines, and also braiding that together with Euro-Western or present day medicine. So they're complementary. I like to think they're complementary and they walk together. So that those life values that are involved in that, and it's basically helping people achieve and walk through their path. In a sense, it's like life coaching.
Yeah.
Again, translating it into English is almost difficult. So those intersections would be, working with that elder, for instance, or working with Indigenous agencies in Toronto, in different reserves where there's health centers. And off the health centers, off those specific defined health centers where there's all kinds of ceremonies, and ceremonies vary in their description, but a lot of times they're for the well-being of the community, of the people that are attending them. It may include philosophical light teachings. I know, for instance, very soon we're going to be doing a marriage ceremony, which is quite different from the I'll call it again European. Being part European, I guess I have that privilege, but that European other world concept of marriage style. So every culture has something. I know it's been blended for the most part. When we think of a wedding, we think of the white dress and well, some of us do, respectfully, because there's a lot of cultures where it's not the white dress, it's not the black tuxedo, it's completely different. So I digress a little bit, just in the sense of there's so many different views on interacting with health, and it's often I've done work with some of the major health organizations in Ontario as well, and it's that image of the hospital, of the medical doctors, of the clinics, etc. So there's that other diverse background that I think is really nice to understand and know.
Yeah.
So for myself, for instance, I worked with Anishinaabe Health Toronto back in the 90s. In fact, I was on their board of directors for a while, and that led into other connections in different hospitals and places. So kind of a unique journey. I almost say coming from, that that almost mystical, as it's looked at, background in health, but they actually address the same thing. How can we be well? How can we walk through life in a good well? How can we physically, mentally, and spiritually be healthy? I certainly think those three components make us, a strong braid, as I like to say.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so interested in what you're saying with the cues of language. You're talking about translating language or using, you said the word holistic, which is one that in anthropology we use all the time in terms of the
Right.
four field and bringing it all together. So I was hoping you could speak a little bit to how you conceive of or understand words like health and illness or well-being or sickness. What's the power of those words, and how do you choose to use them?
Um, yeah, I tend to try and choose to use them in context. So if I'm sitting in a room with medical doctors and we're talking about what it means to be healthy,
Mhm.
not only that physical sense, but I recognize too the requirement for specialization, where you go through your medical school and you have something you have a focused interest in, and that's the norm for a lot of people. If you're interested in whatever, you may specifically focus on that. Metaphoric example, you may really like animals, but you're very interested in riding horses and dealing with horses. So that's your specific, I guess. Um, and with doctors, I find it's the same thing. It's hard. It's also hard to have a knowledge base of absolutely everything to do with the human. We're a very complex thing. We are made up of this physical vessel that we walk in. We are made up of the emotional, um, the mental components of walking through life. We almost all of us have either a belief system or a philosophy of life, which I refer to as the spiritual.
Mm.
So expanding on those different terms, you can see can be, um, it needs to be in context. And I kind of, in a sense, I look at it like the weather. You
Yeah.
dress for the weather. And that doesn't mean you change yourself because you're the same person inside, but what you are wearing to navigate through what you're dealing with or work with. So there's that shift. That adaptability, I think, is critical and important in healthcare. What is it I'm dealing with? Am I dealing with somebody, again, I'll digress a little bit, but if somebody comes in and they're bruised, have bruises, then here's what you need. You might need something for pain. You may need some band-aids in its most simplest sense. But it's also, why is this? Why did this happen? What was the cause of it? And do we need to work on that as well? So if where does that lead us? So that other road might be a road for a different specialist. If somebody's bruised because they've been in a situation of violence, what caused that?
Mhm.
So exploring those different roads is for different specialists. So trying to amalgamate that all together, as an Indigenous philosophy says, these things aren't separate; they are interconnected, and will continue to happen unless we take action in different areas as well. And I realize that's incredibly difficult in our present healthcare system,
Mhm.
just because of A, what your specialization is, B, because maybe a health center in particular is funded and focused on a particular concept.
Right.
So I don't think that's how it used to be. And people often say, traditionally Indigenous wise, this is what happened, but I wasn't there. So I can't really say this is how it was, or this particular group or mindset did this or that. So the best I can do is work off my own experience. And I find quite often doing work across Canada and the States in different places, that there is, or used to be, might be a better term, still is in some places, and not a lot of access to what we're quite used to here in the big city.
Mhm.
So somebody may have to, as a traditional elder, for instance, they may have to be really aware of the physiological, the psychological, and the spiritual aspects of who they're dealing with.
Yeah.
So there's a requirement for building a relationship. So I didn't want to go too far off, but those words, well-being, um, doesn't mean I'm smiling right at this moment, but when I'm later on, I'll have my head down in depression,
Mhm.
or my body is not well. So well-being incorporates all those things, because we have trouble getting through our day if all these things aren't in place.
Yeah.
But also recognizing we are not a perfect biological unit. We are not a perfect mental unit. We are not a perfect spiritual unit. That there's an ongoing journey through health, that as we acquire more knowledge, more understanding, um, and a better maybe frame of mind, that hopefully our health level will continue to ascend rather than descend. And how is it we deal with health issues? Yeah. Again, health issues to me means all those three things.
Right.
Sometimes people throw in emotional as well, but I kind of intertwine that within that braid, as I call it. Mm-hmm. And I often teach it that way, that if these things are braided together, they become really strong. Yeah. And if those braids are smooth and equal, then that braid in your hair, I always use that metaphor because I always have this braid I put in my hair every day. If it's done smoothly, it looks pretty nice. And in fact, it's a thing I do every day, where I get up and I start my day, with the grooming, I'll call it, kind of a cat thing. I'm just kidding. And I'll braid my hair, and that's kind of the start of my day, the focus, bringing all things together. And I'm thinking mind, body, spirit, mind, body, spirit, mind, body, spirit. It's almost a meditation. So there's another word. What is a meditation? But for me, it's kind of looking at my day going, okay, I need to balance all these things and go through my day. And I find if I start thinking about something different, by the way, my braid comes out a mess. And I'll actually undo it a bit and go back to the spot where my thoughts, my mindset digressed, and focus again. So that focus in what is health. Mm-hmm. And certainly recognizing that there are physical parameters that we can't change. There may be a situation in life that we can't change at the moment. So how do we navigate through that? That is part of the well-being word. Yeah. And again, because these things are interpreted differently depending from where you're looking in that, wherever you sit in the circle, as I say, you may see it differently. And things may, garner more importance to yourself depending on your specialty, if you're a medical doctor, for instance. So, and this is something with some of the major health deliverers that I've sat and talked with, saying, promoting the idea of change in that sense, that these things need to be balanced. But again, I recognize a specialist is a specialist. If they are a lung specialist, they may not be a psychologist. Probably not. So it's pretty hard to put all those things together in today's present society. But I think in the past, that might have been, and I look at the Indigenous side of things, I think that might have been kind of the way things were. Right. And if you couldn't fix something, and there's an old thing when you come to a traditional knowledge keeper and ask for assistance, often there's a gift given, a gift of tobacco. Mm-hmm. And often they will listen to what you have to say. Sometimes before they accept that, sometimes they'll accept it and listen to what you have to say. But if they don't have the knowledge set to help you, they will also say, I think you need to speak to this person. They have more understanding of what you're asking. So I think there was this kind of old style referrals, I'll call them.
Yes.
And who knows, maybe present day medicine's modeled after that from every society that had something similar. Mm-hmm.
Well, on the topic of seeking more knowledge, you give me just the perfect segue. If students, after they watch this, I'm sure will be desperate to learn more. What were some resources, or where should students go to learn more about the topics you've talked about today?
So those topics are certainly broad, mm-hmm. And I can't give you a specific website, for instance, but certainly, if I was, I'm thinking back to myself, because I didn't actually pursue knowledge within what we're talking about. It was kind of there, and it was taking note of its location and sometimes going to it. Right. And that's the pursuit of knowledge, of course. As far as resources, I have to say, because we're in a virtual world right now, you can pretty well type into anything into the internet, and it will come up instantly as 987,000 hits in 0.7 seconds. I refer, and this is maybe a cautionary thing. I can remember talking to my cat's vet, not my vet, And I was saying my cat didn't look well. I looked on the internet and here's what came up. And he explained the internet kind of in an interesting way. He goes, picture going to Queen and Yonge. He goes, sitting there with your cat and you yell up Yonge Street, my cat's sick. Can everybody help me? And all the way up Yonge Street, all these windows start opening and people start yelling out different opinions. So there is a cautionary. There is certainly, specifically for health within the GTA and outside the GTA, there's quite a number of Indigenous agencies that are focused on health and well-being. There's certainly within the university setting, for specific to the University of Toronto, for instance, First Nations House has a great resource system. They have Indigenous Studies program with professors, doctors, with teachers, etc., that may be able to help redirect. And certainly, if you go to our medical science facility, faculty, we do have people specific in the medical world who are Indigenous who can help direct us all as well. I believe there is the office, I'm sorry, I forget the name of it right now, but it's the Office of Indigenous Medical Studies. It slips my mind right now, even though I helped form it many years ago with Dr. Jason Pennington, certainly Dr. Lisa Richardson, who is at the Toronto Western, I believe, and several other people. I think Rochelle Allen was there at that time. So there is an office devoted to Indigenous medical education. So that's a great resource if we're talking specifically medical.
Yes.
And the different agencies that deal with mental health care, for instance, in Toronto, CAMH, CAMH. I know they have on board Indigenous doctors and or elders, etc. So a lot of the agencies, health agencies nowadays will have access to both Euro-Western and traditional healthcare systems. So there's lots of information out there. I'm always willing to chat, one-on-one with students or assist, and I always offer that, of course. So it's a little bit of searching required. And if you want me to go traditional for a second, it's like hunting.
Right.
It is, don't expect the animals to come running up to your door and go, hello, I'm here for dinner. I've yet to, and I have a beautiful garden, I've yet to have a potato jump out of the ground and run into the kitchen and wait.
Right.
So there is, within that metaphor, it says there is some seeking to be done.
Yeah.
As it becomes more specific, meaning somebody goes, oh, this is in particular what I'm looking for. I'm looking for how do you deal with psychological issues, how do you deal with mental health care? How do you deal with physical health care, et cetera? Then I'm happy to attempt the best I can to redirect people. It's not quite within my medical health care or et cetera, is not within my role at UTM. I'm an advisor, but within that capacity, I can advise. And if I don't have that information, hopefully I can find somebody to help.
Well, that's
just like,
I was gonna say, just like the referrals.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
We're back to referrals, so that's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, Kat, I've taken up so much of your time today. I want to thank you so much for your generosity. This has been so interesting, and I know the students are going to be absolutely delighted. So you'll probably have some people knocking on your virtual door after watching the video. So thank you so much for your time today. Thank you also to everybody who's watching the video today, and I hope that you will join me next time on Let's Talk About Health.
Thank you very much. And I'm not hard to find. If you go to UTM's website and just type in Indigenous, the Indigenous Center will pop up right away with contacts for not only myself, but also T. Duke, who is the Assistant Director of Indigenous Initiatives at the Mississauga campus. And both of us are more than happy to help in any way that we can.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you too.
Cheers.